CBS News senior political editor Steve Chaggaris is here with us now from Washington. Steve, it seemed like the president was speaking directly to those on the campaign trail using anti-Muslim rhetoric, but clearly it seems like his message was not received.
Yeah, there's definitely part of that speech that was speaking to the Republican candidates and to basically ask folks to tone things down in terms of rhetoric. But the Republicans have no incentive to do that. First of all, they disagree with him completely on his strategy. Secondly, there's a sense, at least among some of the candidates, that there is an issue with radical Islamism, and so they're going to keep calling it that, and they're going to keep targeting Muslims because, as they say, they're the ones that are causing these terror attacks.
Steve, as you know, there's this new poll out today taken before last week's shooting, and it says 68% of Americans say President Obama is not aggressive enough in the fight against ISIS. Interesting to note that during the president's speech yesterday, he made a point to talk about the number of terror suspects that he has taken out, starting with Osama bin Laden and going down the list up until just very recently, an ISIS target that was taken out. But are Americans either not getting that message or shifting away from the president?
Well, that was part of the strategy for the president, was to try to convince Americans that what he's doing is working. But what you're seeing is after Paris, and we'll see, I think, soon see after San Bernardino, if we get polling soon after that, that there's a concern among Americans, a growing concern that there could be more terrorism in the United States. And I think you're seeing Americans want a more aggressive strategy to deal with ISIS. The fact that there more Americans are calling for more boots on the ground, I think, is significant. This is something that the president does not want to do, but it's something that Republicans are calling for, and it's something that if this keeps growing, that's going to put pressure on the president to really start thinking about it.
And it's also just interesting to note that it's something that ISIS also wants. They do want to bait the United States and her allies into actually launching an actual combat ground operation on the ground in Syria.
Steve, let me just ask you about the Republican candidates and their proposals to fight ISIS. How realistic, when you look at sort of the landscape that exists right now, how realistic are some of these proposals that GOP candidates are making?
It depends on who you ask, and it depends on who you're paying attention to. So you have people like Donald Trump and people like Ted Cruz who basically want to carpet bomb ISIS. And then you've got others within the party. I mean, you have the president who's completely against that, and Democrats, but you have others within the Republican Party who are suggesting that that's unrealistic and there needs to be a more surgical way to deal with this. So there's even disputes within the Republican Party. The question is what are Republican voters going to react to? And right now it seems as if they are drawn to people like Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. Those are the things that they're saying, I think, are attractive to the average Republican voter at this point. And so, again, this growing fear and this sense that we should have a more aggressive strategy against ISIS seems to be playing well with Republican voters.
Let's talk about the Democratic response, Steve. Hillary Clinton is in an interesting spot at the moment. Leading up to the general election, how does she maintain that Democratic support, but also show that she's going to be tough on ISIS? Will that be enough, whatever she says, whatever she proposes, to woo some of those on-the-fence voters?
Yeah, she's walking a tightrope. You saw that clip in Juliana's piece about her saying that the strategy we have right now, we're not winning, but she also has to sound like she's being tough on this, because in terms of a general election, she has to convince that growing concern, Americans who have that growing concern about ISIS. She has to convince them that she's going to be the right person to be president. Now, if they're equating her with President Obama and his numbers continue to sink, that's not a place where she wants to be. So she's got that interesting tightrope to walk, basically to show Democrats she's not off the reservation in terms of what the president wants to do, but at the same time convince Americans that she's strong enough to deal with this.
All right, CBS News senior political editor Steve Chaggaris. Steve, thank you very much for that analysis.
Thanks.